Tonight, walls protect you so completely that you barely notice them. They stop the wind, slow the rain, trap warmth, and keep animals outside. Now, imagine those walls disappearing. No roof, no lock, no dry floor. Only open ground, falling temperatures, and darkness filled with creatures that can see and hear far better than you can. Before humans built homes, surviving the night was a problem that had to be solved again and again. The earliest shelter was probably not built. It was found. A tree canopy could break heavy rain. A rock overhang could block the wind. A cave offered walls and a roof without anyone lifting a branch. But caves were not empty apartments. They could flood, fill with smoke, or already belong to bears, hyenas, snakes, and insects. Choosing a safe place required experience, caution, and a detailed understanding of the landscape. Fire did not create physical walls, but it created a boundary. Inside the light were warmth, familiar faces, food, tools, and conversation. Beyond it was darkness. Flames could discourage some predators, dry, damp materials, and make a protected corner feel safer. The first meaningful room may not have been surrounded by wood or stone. It may simply have been a circle of orange light, held against the night by people determined to keep it burning. Deep inside Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, researchers found evidence that early hominins repeatedly brought fire into the darkness. Burnt bones appeared far beyond the reach of an ordinary wildfire. This does not prove that these early humans could make fire whenever they wanted, or that they routinely cooked. They may have collected flames from natural fires and carefully preserved them. Even so, carrying fire into a cave transformed darkness into usable, protected space. A portable shelter could be made from simple materials. Flexible branches were pushed into the ground, bent together, and tied with plant fibers. Grass, reeds, bark, or animal hide covered the frame, while stones held the edges against the wind. Bedding softened the ground, and a small fire protected the entrance. The design was lightweight, repairable, and easy to rebuild. Its greatest strength was not permanence. It was the ability to create protection almost anywhere. At Kalambo Falls in Zambia, waterlogged sediment preserved something extraordinary. Two large wooden logs shaped with stone tools and joined by an intentionally cut notch. They date to at least 476,000 years ago, before our species appeared. The structure may have supported a platform, walkway, or shelter foundation. We cannot call it a house with certainty, but it proves that ancient builders could plan, shape wood, and lock separate pieces together. At Border Cave in South Africa, people created a more comfortable interior about 200,000 years ago. They placed bundles of broad-leafed grass over layers of ash near the protected rear of the cave. The grass made a softer place for sleeping and working. The ash may have discouraged crawling insects, and some old bedding appears to have been burned before fresh material was added. This was not random camping. It was deliberate maintenance of a living space. There was never one perfect prehistoric house. Every landscape demanded a different answer. Woodland offered flexible branches and leaves. Wetlands supplied reeds. Grasslands provided hides from large animals. In colder regions, earth and snow helped trap warmth and block the wind. Human success came from adaptation, not from repeating a single design. The strongest shelter was the one that used local materials, matched the climate, and could be repaired with knowledge carried by the group. About 23,000 years ago, people built a lakeshore camp at Ohalo II beside the Sea of Galilee. Archaeologists found the floors of 6 oval brush huts, along with hearths, food remains, tools, and a burial. Inside one hut, grass bedding surrounded a central fire. Sleeping, working, and plant preparation took place in organized areas. This was recognizably domestic life, created by hunter-gatherers thousands of years before agriculture became widespread. On the cold plains of what is now Ukraine, useful timber could be scarce. At Mezhyrich, people arranged mammoth skulls, long bones, and curved tusks into large circular structures around 18,000 years ago. Their exact purpose and duration remain debated, but they reveal extraordinary adaptation. Where wood was limited, builders turned to the strongest material available. A home was never simply a shape. It was a local response to climate, movement, danger, and available resources. Long before walls, a safe campsite began with observation. Early humans watched the wind, studied animal tracks, recognized flood lines, and searched for dry ground above rising water. They noticed bones, droppings, claw marks, and the direction from which danger might approach. This knowledge rarely leaves an archaeological trace, but it was essential technology. A protected night depended not only on what people built, but on their ability to understand the landscape before darkness arrived. Archaeologists rarely discover an ancient moment intact. Instead, they study layers of sediment, microscopic ash, heat-altered stone, and fragments of burnt bone. At Wonderwerk, these traces were found deep inside the cave, where natural wildfire was unlikely to reach. The evidence suggests repeated human involvement with fire, while leaving important questions unanswered. Good history separates what the evidence demonstrates from what we merely imagine. Uncertainty is not weakness. It is part of honest reconstruction. Most early architecture was designed to survive weather, not thousands of centuries. Grass decayed, hide rotted. Wooden poles were consumed by fungi and insects. After a few seasons, a carefully built shelter could disappear almost completely, while the stone tool used to construct it remained. This is why the history of housing contains enormous gaps. The absence of preserved walls does not mean people slept without protection. It often means that their best materials returned quietly to the earth. At Terra Amata in southern France, arrangements of stones and possible post holes were interpreted as the remains of very ancient huts. The reconstruction is compelling, but later researchers questioned whether the archaeological layers had been disturbed and mixed. That debate teaches an important lesson. A convincing picture is not the same as secure evidence. Archaeologists must compare patterns, test alternative explanations, and sometimes accept that a structure may remain possible rather than proven. A home is more than a roof. It is also the space beneath your body. At Border Cave, layers of grass and ash created an early sleeping and working surface. People appear to have cleaned, renewed, and organized this area rather than collapsing wherever darkness found them. Comfort, pest control, warmth, and daily work came together in one protected place. The first bedroom did not contain furniture, but it already reflected care, planning, and the desire to improve tomorrow night. For mobile hunter-gatherers, a permanent building could become an anchor. Animals migrated, plants ripened in different places, and water sources changed with the seasons. A lightweight shelter could be dismantled, abandoned, or rebuilt with materials found along the route. People did not need to carry an entire house. They carried the knowledge required to make one. Mobility was not evidence of primitive living. It was a sophisticated response to landscapes that were constantly changing. Inside an Ohalo II brush hut, domestic life was carefully organized. A central hearth provided warmth and light. Grass bedding rested near the curved wall. Other areas were used for preparing plants and making stone tools. The shelter was small, but its interior was not random. Different activities occupied different spaces, just as they do inside homes today. The materials were simple, yet the underlying idea was familiar: create order, comfort, and safety within a shared boundary. By the Natufian period, beginning around 15,000 years ago, some communities in the Levant invested more labor in particular places. They built partly sunken circular structures with stone foundations, while continuing to depend heavily on wild resources. Farming did not suddenly invent the village. Settled life developed gradually, through repeated visits, storage, repair, and stronger connections to familiar locations. Houses became more durable because people were beginning to remain, return, and remember. A durable shelter changed human behavior. Storage made possessions useful. A fixed hearth encouraged repeated routines. Repairing the same walls created investment in one location. Neighbors returned to the same neighbors, and children learned the same paths between familiar buildings. The shelter was no longer only protection from weather. It was becoming an address. But permanence also introduced maintenance, waste, conflict, ownership, and disease. The house solved old problems while helping create entirely new ones. There was no single night when humanity went to sleep outside and woke up inside a house. Home emerged through countless decisions. Choose this ledge, preserve this flame, bend these branches, spread grass over ash, strengthen this wall, and return to this place. Most of those shelters vanished, but the idea survived. Tonight, when you close your door, you are continuing an ancient promise. Bring the people you care about inside, keep the danger outside, and survive until morning.